What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Flight Time Podcast. This is episode number 31. Hope everybody's doing well. What's going on, Bill?
Not too much. Just trying to get back into the swing of things here with this podcast, as you know.
I know.
But what we want to talk about today, amidst everything going on, because pretty much all there is to talk about is the coronavirus, the effects of the coronavirus. But rather than talk about something that's negatively impacted business and impacted the world, we want to talk about some things that you can do from home, specifically relating to flying your drone and how to get better at flying your drone, because practice makes perfect. And I think that in this situation, flying drones, it's all the more true just because as you continue to fly your drone, get better control over it, you're going to see that you're going to shoot better images with it, not just video, but also photos. So we've got about 5, 6, 7 things that we want to discuss here, things that you can do to get better at, flying a drone from home. And it's things that, I do. I go outside on my balcony here at my apartment and fly up and down the river. And it's just things you can do from your home without going outside to get better. So I guess we'll kind of treat this as like a list here, Ken. So why don't you go with number 1?
So check it out. So with all this downtime that most of us are going to have, I know there's probably a lot of you that are probably home. Maybe you're working from home. Maybe you're out of work entirely and your company said, all right, just stay home to be safe. And a lot of us can't just sort of gallivant all around and fly all these awesome locations because you may run the risk of running into somebody, whatever the case is. So I like to look at this time as prep time. This is the time where you want to start making all those little micro adjustments that you don't necessarily want to do when all this passes and you're on site somewhere and you're wanting to fly and you're wanting to get really good footage, but you don't want to take the time to make all these little changes. So part of getting better is being able to dial in your settings on your application. So I would say right now, tip number 1, take the time to just turn your drone on, not even take off the ground, and customize your DJI application. You do this, right, Bill? You customize things like your custom function buttons and things like that.
Yeah, it's the first thing that I do as soon as I get a drone out of the box. I just dig through all the menus, all the different settings. I mean, right there along with doing the IMU calibration when, it comes out of the box just from being shipped to me, I'm digging through the settings, making sure everything is set properly.
Yeah, you'd be surprised how many people don't have custom shortcuts set up, or they haven't taken the time just to, turn on the grid lines so you can line up your shots and make sure things are straight.
Do you use grid lines?
I do. Ever since you will use center point.
I use the center point, but it's here's the thing is that maybe I understand that there's a couple of drones that really have an issue with the horizontal being totally off. In particular, the Phantom and the Inspire, both of those, it is kind of rough to really dial in the gimbal, but I've never had an issue with the Mavic. I've never looked at a horizon and said, whoa, that's totally off.
No, I've never had it off, but I like to I use the rule of thirds a lot of times when I'm photographing a house. For instance, a house. If I'm looking to line up a house, I want to sort of, see how my framing is and, get my shot. Or if I'm doing something an architectural shot, I don't know, when we're in Philly that time, I use the rule of thirds so I can sort of frame up my shot. And then +2, I also use it if I'm going to crop my photo for Instagram, I want to make sure that I'm within those center lines. So when I crop it, that's the only reason why I use center lines. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't use grid, but I like the crop factor. So when I'm posting up to Insta, I know I'm going to have everything where I want it to be and it doesn't look all funky.
Well, it would be great. And I think that DJI really needs to add a lot more customization to the DJI Go application. I mean, you've got on the Mavic, right? You've got your C1 button, your C2 button on the back, and then you've got the 5 directional button right there on the front. So you have a lot of different customizable options, but there's only 7, 8, 9 different things that you can actually change or choose from. And most of them, honestly, really aren't that helpful. I only use a couple of them, really, gimbal up and down, the battery information, and being able to pull up the map. Those are really the only things that I find to be helpful. But imagine if you could, with those custom buttons, turn off grid lines on and on, right? Because even though you're using that camera to shoot images, you're also using that camera sometimes to fly the actual drone. And when you get like the zebra bars on, the focus peaking, and the grid lines and center point turned on, that's a lot in the way of seeing what you're actually going to be flying, you know? So, I mean, look, they're helpful, and on a regular camera, they're very intuitive and they're very easy to use. But like when you're flying a drone, it makes it so cumbersome to dig through the menus, turn it on and off as you're flying around. So they need to make it easier, in my opinion, to switch them on and off, because then I could see it as a viable option to use.
Yeah, they just need to make it to where, like, if you swiped it away, it's just going to take all the lines away, or some sort of like gesture. I mean, it seems like DJI is all about gestures. I mean, if they did something like that, that would be pretty cool. I would be all about that, and I think that would be helpful for a lot of people, especially because we're using smart controllers and stuff like that, and we don't have a lot of real estate on that screen.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. The DJI Go application is on life support. I remember beginning my YouTube channel 4 years ago, and what's changed since then? Not a single thing.
No, it's not. It does need an overhaul.
It's relatively the same. I understand they're trying to do something different with DJI Fly, but I actually think that's almost one step backwards. While it's a new interface, which is great, it feels like something new. There's so many different settings missing, and I understand that it's built for the Mavic Mini and they don't want to overwhelm new flyers with all these different settings, but I really think they need to take another step forward and really change that application. I mean, there's things that I can think of off the top of my head that would be huge. Like, imagine cloud syncing, so that if you're using multiple devices, I know sometimes I bounce back and forth between my Pixel, my iPhone, and my iPad. Like, imagine if I change one setting on my iPhone, it's changed across my DJI account entirely. Like, that'd be huge.
That would be epic.
There's so many things they need to add into that app, and I'm serious when I say it's on life support. They need to do something.
Menu-wise, like for an application-wise, I really do like how Autel's menu system is, just because everything I need is like right on a slider, and that slider hides. Like as soon as I tap it away, it just goes away. But then if I tap the screen, the slider brings all my options, like my ISO, my shutter, basically anything you can need is right there. The ability to change from brackets to single shot to you want log footage. Okay, it's all right there. You're not having to dive into a menu and open this other thing. It's all right there. Or you can use the scroll wheel and access your menu. So to me, that is really handy. I wish more systems did something like that.
Well, dude, you know what's also great is with the Parrot Anafi, how everything is on the bottom of the screen, so you're using your thumbs.
Yeah.
Like, you're not even taking your hand off the controller. You're just like reaching up with your thumb. It's really nice.
I agree.
I mean, look, in order to like wrap up that first tip right there, right, or the first thing you can do when flying from home, I think that digging through your settings and really changing, how your drone flies with like the EXP settings, the braking, the sensitivity settings, but also diving into some of like the image settings, like some of the different photo settings, even just some of the different like image transmission settings. You'd be so surprised at the results that you get after you change that and really make it your own, because you'll notice you're shooting better photos and better videos with your drone because you have better control over it. So yeah, I mean, I think you bring up a really good point. It is a no-brainer to just sit down, change the settings to your liking, and just learn them, because you're going to get such a better understanding of how your drone operates.
Exactly. And I think if we're going into like tip number 2, it would be to practice just your general movements with the drone.
Just fly.
Just fly. But practice those micro movements like the yaw. And I guess, if anything, you can learn how to pinch. I know there's a lot of people that fight that. I hate to start that argument, but I fought it for a long time. But now that I've been doing that, I realize, man, you get a lot more control, at least with the GPS drone.
Here's the thing, is that when you're flying a drone, no matter what you do, when that drone is in the air, you're ultimately getting better. Like, anytime that I go out and I fly in a certain area, even if I come away with like, no good photos or no good video, I know that I at least bettered myself. Maybe I was able to get down this setup of my drone so that when I go out again, it's just going to be even faster to get my drone in the air. Maybe I was able to get better at flying the drone with the pinch method, like you said, pinching the sticks rather than just using my thumbs. Maybe I got some better control over the gimbal. I mean, I see every time that I put my drone up in the air as just a way to get better at perfecting my craft, and that's really with anything. So, I mean, that's such a good tip, and I think that it's very easy to like explain. Like, just get out and fly. Practice some different movements. Choose a subject. Practice orbiting. Practice getting control of the gimbal, because there's one thing that I see in a lot of people's videos. It's the fact that the gimbal is so shaky. Maybe not shaky, but so jittery. Like
It's jerky.
Yeah, jerky. That's the word that I'm looking for. Like when you go into a gimbal movement, it feels like, I don't know, there's no smoothness to it. So that kind of also relates back to dialing in your settings, right? You're going to be able to go in there and change the smoothness so you get better looking footage. So just flying, it's going to make you so much better. And if you've got a drone, I'm sure if you're watching this video, you have some sort of drone,
Sure.
Get outside and practice with that real drone. Don't do any flight simulators. I know that it's bigger like in the FPV world. And even though we're staying inside, it's also at this level where we're now social distancing. So like if you go out in your backyard, it's not like, there's going to be a bunch of people around you. So you've got enough room to hopefully fly. I mean, some people have different yards than other people. Maybe you don't have a lot of room.
And that's the thing too, is, when we're talking about this social distancing, you can take your drone and, there's a lot of these parks that are going to be closed. You can park on the side of the road or something. You're away from everybody and you can fly. Like, obviously, most of the governors, most of the state officials, they're okay with you going out, getting some fresh air, to exercise, to whatever. As long as you're not in a group or near people, you're fine. And to have a drone, it's like the perfect loner hobby, because you can just sort of get up and go, and you can fly some, like a park, practice, and and try to hone in those skills. Or if you've seen some maneuvers, like we call them complex maneuvers, try to practice those. So when you take them back to your editor, you have something more dynamic to work with. And also plan your shots a little more. Like, that's another thing I see. So I do this Friday night flights every single Friday, and what I've noticed too in some of these videos that I watch, there's a lot of aimless flight. Like, I feel like there's not really a plan, and there's all this beautiful scenery, but there's not really a plan to some of these flights. But then there's some pilots that I can tell that they're like, all right, I've got 3 batteries. I have to make these 3 batteries count. So always think that you're flying on your last battery, and you have to make every shot count if you're trying to go back and compile it. Unless you're just flying for fun, then screw it, but whatever.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are a couple of times where I put the drone up and I'm just like not even looking at the camera, watching it fly around, just zipping around, having fun. And that kind of brings us into an interesting topic that I kind of want to shoot off to for a second. Sorry, my phone is going off. I want to shoot off to this topic that you and I were talking about. Like, if there's a shutdown and if there's a really busy park, let's say, that usually has a ton of people, that's now totally empty, well, is it now legal to fly there because there's no people? And you and I were, I think we didn't talk about it too much, but I think we're going to butt heads on this. I would say that if there's a road that's shut down, if there is a park that's shut down, if there's a place that's shut down, as long as airspace permits it, you can fly in those areas. For example, today in Philadelphia, I was running on Martin Luther King Boulevard, which is like runs right along the Schuylkill River. It's kind of like the same route as I-76, right? So I was running on that road. It's totally shut down, and it's usually a pretty busy road. So if I were to fly my drone down that with cars on it, well, then, obviously I'm flying over people, and that's one of the rules that you're not supposed to break. But because I'm literally running on that road and there's not a soul around me, I could put my drone up there and be totally fine.
Yeah, I mean, yes, you could be. And, I've been contemplating things myself. So, for instance, in Tampa, all the theme parks are shut down. All right. The only theme park in Florida. Right, I know. So the only theme park in the entire state that has a temporary flight restriction is Disney World. Like, they have a permanent TFR. Like, you can't fly there. But Busch Gardens does not have a TFR, and it's not in any, airspace where you couldn't fly. But obviously on any normal day, you couldn't fly there. because there's thousands of people there, but now there's nobody there. And they have like the Serengeti plains and all. I don't know. I'm sure the giraffes and animals are still out there. I thought it would be a cool flight, but then part of me is like, man, this would be a shit show if I did it, because, you know, just because, you know, people don't know the rules. The rules say it's okay, but is it actually okay to do this?
Well, I think that it's definitely something to look into, because while the initial rule of flying over people is obviously not being broken because there's no people there, you might want to check like what their rules are about drones for the park, which I assume that they would say no, but maybe call them, maybe do something. I don't know. That's something that's definitely a gray area, but in these public spaces that's not owned by like a private entity, a person, an individual, or like a company. I mean, a road that's totally closed, it's fair game, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I don't know. I mean, I've seen things, you know, like as of right now, like New York City is completely dead. It's a ghost town. There's like Times Square is completely dead. But, you know, there's a lot of parts of that are not a no-fly zone there.
It's true. You've got to think about like the buildings, right? Like the property, I guess. And you've also got to think about airspace, because New York City is just covered by so many different kinds of airspace. So there's a lot of different factors, but I think that rule of flying over people, if there's no people, you're good to go, as long as the other rules kind of fall into place in terms of like airspace, private property, and just, you know, somebody's general rule about a private space. So the just kind of to catch everybody up, you know, the two tips that we've got, or the two things you can do from home. First of all is to, you know, hone in your settings, sit down, you know, put the drone on your table, take the propellers off if you're afraid it's going to take off, and just go through the different menus. And the second one is to just fly. I mean, that probably should have been the first. It's a no-brainer. Get outside, fly your drone, because any time on the sticks is going to, you know, make you better at that craft. But kind of taking a step away from the drone, another thing you can do at home, which is coming in with like the third thing to do from home to get better at drone flying, is to take those images that you shoot and get better at editing, because half of the battle is doing that editing. Like if you can fly the drone successfully without crashing it, that's great, but the images that you get after the fact, if you're not really all that good or all that experienced at editing, whether they be photos or videos, I mean, what's the point? So it's always really important to work on that.
Yeah, I agree. I get people always ask me all the time, how do you get those colors? How do you do that? And a lot of times I shoot in log for most all of my drone footage, and it took me a while before I was really comfortable being able to utilize that or get, you know, colors that looked, you know, halfway decent.
Yeah.
And it takes a while, and like nobody would probably believe us, but sometimes I'll take the drone out, fly up in the air after I make changes, just record like, I don't know, you know, just a general scene. It could be the neighbors, whatever, the sky, just some decent exposure, bring it back into the editor, color grade it just to match it up to see if it's going to look right based upon the settings I've changed. I do the same thing for my cameras. I'll sit and film that scene where I'm sitting at the desk in my office so many times and sit there and color grade it.
Oh, I know. I see it on your Twitter.
You know, because you got to practice. Like you make one change and it throws everything. It just changes everything. So the idea is, you know, at least the way I look at it is, for my audience, I want them to see a consistent image. So when you're making all these changes, sometimes if it's too drastic, people will pick up on drastic changes. Even if it's color, they can pick up on something's different. So you want it to be subtle. And there's so many tutorials out there. I mean, you and I have done numerous color grading tutorials and editing tutorials. And I would probably absorb a lot of that. Sit back and watch it and grab some footage.
Well, here's the thing, right? Is like when you think about a sport, and let's say you're like I don't even play baseball, so this is like such a horrible analogy because I could be totally getting this wrong. But like, let's say you're a pitcher and you figure out how to throw this new pitch, and you don't practice it at all in practice, but you get there on game day and you decide I'm gonna throw this pitch, and it goes horribly, right? Like let's say you hit the batter, you throw a ball or whatever, you walk somebody. So I would say that if you correlate this to flying a drone, and if you're working for a client, that's like game day, right? Like you're showing up, you're looking to perform for your client. You're looking to make sure that you give him or her the best looking image possible. And I can say when I was getting started, I would continue to try and experiment when I was out working for people and they were paying me their money. And while I always delivered a good product, there's always that thought in the back of your mind, like, man, if I shoot this wrong and I get to like home and I'm editing it, well, I could totally screw this up. So there's kind of a little bit of understanding and knowledge that goes behind, like, say, shooting photos or shooting specifically like log video or something like that. Because if you don't expose it properly, then the editing process is just going to be a lot harder. So being able to take the time right now while you're sitting at home and just shoot photos of your home or shoot photos of your neighbor's home if they're cool with that, or shoot some video, just change up the scenery and really practice it, because you can come out of this period we're in right now, this quarantine social distancing period, and just be so much better, you know?
Right. And I think there's an inherent risk anytime you're making changes. I know you used to always, you would like sort of be like, why do you do that? Because I would be like, yo, I tried this on a client's
You're so
house.
wishy-washy.
and because I'm always experimenting. I'm trying to find the best workflow. And you're like, why do you do that? You just picked this client up. Why the hell would you do that? That's a risk. And at the time I don't think about it. And I've had some really close calls where I'm like, oh crap, I screwed up. What am I going to do? And it works out. But
there's absolutely no worse feeling than getting back from a job and sitting down and saying, oh man, this is going to be rough editing it. Like, there's no worse feeling than that.
Oh,
or
you
like
can tell. You can tell when it's going to happen.
Yeah, you get home and you're just like, oh man, like I forgot something or I didn't do something proper. I mean, there's a lot of experience to be had while actually like working for clients and while actually, I guess, being in the business, but there's also a lot of things you can learn by just doing stuff on the side. And I understand you don't want to waste a lot of time by like sitting around and just testing and testing and testing. I mean, there's got to be a point where you just go out and start learning from experience. But right now, where there's maybe not all that much work, or maybe if you're doing you've got a job and you just want to get better at drone stuff on the side and you're staying at home, this is just all around such a good time to use your time wisely and just get better. I mean, with any of these things. I got to
shoot tomorrow. Well, by the time people are hearing it's today, but I got to shoot tomorrow, and I've been prepping my gear. Like I always I lay out all my gear, and I lay out my SD cards so I know what SD card I'm going to use on what house. And I got some new gear. I got a new flash and I got a cam ranger. So the first thing I do is I sit there and prep it and figure out how I'm going to use it and make sure it all functions. Because the last thing you want to do is take it to a shoot and sit there and fiddle with your new whatever when you're working for a client. Same goes for you guys. If you're going to make a change, definitely don't do it on a paid gig, and definitely don't do it if it's something you absolutely need. Practice first. Can't say that enough.
Yeah, it's so true. So, general recap. Again, we'll recap you after the third one. The first thing to do while you're at home is to hone in your settings. Second, just fly. Third is color grade. Get better at editing in general, I think, because while flying and shooting is a big part of it, there's so much editing to be done. When you're shooting raw files, like raw photos with your drone, there's just so much more potential sitting in those photos. And once you learn to take advantage of that, you're just going to be delivering better images, and you're overall going to be a better drone operator because you now have the editing skill on the back end. So 4, Ken, what you got? Number 4.
Number 4. I don't have a number 4, Bill. No, I do. I'm just joking. I do. So we talked about obviously color grade, and we talked about minute changes. Another thing I want to talk about too is something that you can either take it or leave it, but something I like to test and tweak is my gimbal calibration. And I like to try to dial in the smoothest movement I can from a gimbal, because we all know you can hit that scroll wheel, and depending on how fast you hit it, it's either gonna go really fast or it's gonna go really slow. But I like to try to find a sweet spot so I don't really have to think about it. It's one less thing I have to think about. And I also like to add a little bit of smoothing to the gimbal, so when I let off the gimbal wheel, it doesn't just like stop. It sort of like coasts a little bit, and it just makes for very, very pleasing footage. So dude, I would say adjust the gimbal wheel.
Dude, what am I gonna do with you?
What are you talking about?
I already talked about this when we were talking about number
When?
one.
When did you talk about this?
This is all about honing in your settings. We already talked about this.
Son of a gun, dude.
I
here's the
talked
problem.
about the gimbal smoothness.
Did you? You must have just grazed over it.
When we're doing this podcast and I'm talking, be honest. When I'm talking, are you on your phone?
No, I'm not on my phone. My phone's actually on the charger across the room.
Are you on your computer?
I'm sitting here looking at waveforms, staring at our spreadsheet, but I'm not listening to you. God, you sound like my wife. Don't be that way. What do you have for a number 4 since I totally butchered that deal?
Well, really quickly before we get into number 4, I do just want to, I guess I considered it a job. I worked there for a little bit with Drone DJ, and Hai left Drone DJ and started his own drone news site.
Is that his own?
Look, so here's the thing, right? Is like I feel like we're getting into like drama territory because like for someone to leave a drone, like to leave a site and then start their own, you always think that there's some sort of bad blood in the water. Like what happened?
Yeah.
Like why did somebody leave an already established site to like start another? I mean, I personally think that he probably started it. And I haven't spoken with him, so I really don't want to put any words in his mouth or get anything started up. But Drone DJ was always a great spot to go for getting news, information. They had some tutorials over on their website, and it was 2 summers ago. Ken, I think when we first we're getting together and hanging out.
Yeah, that was the Mavic event, man. Yeah,
that I started doing some work for them, writing articles. So kind of looking from the outside in after the fact, it's pretty interesting. And I don't think that this is a bad move by any means because how many drone sites are there, right? I mean, think about just in terms of technology. There's a lot of places you can go. There's a lot of places that you can go. There's a lot of independent drone creators, you, me, Kelly, Ready Set Drone, Ken Herron, Drone Valley. There's so many of these independent people, but there's no like larger, I guess, entities like a blog. There's only like 3 that come to mind: Drone DJ, We Talk UAV, and Sally French. Those are the only ones I can think of.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I never read We Talk UAV's blog, and I don't ever read Sally French's. No, not a knock on her. I just don't read it. But for some reason, what I found was convenient with Drone DJ was just sort of like how they do the RSS feed, and they somehow always managed to be at the top of anything, like anything. It didn't matter what it was. Like their news source would pop up, so it was convenient because it was there. But I wish I had the best. It looks like a really clean website. You can tell like the design interface sort of more or less reflects, him much more. Like just it's a cleaner interface. I like it so far.
I really like the logo that he's got. I think it looks really good. So, did we even say the new site that he has is Drone XL?
I didn't. We can link it. We can do it. Yeah, it's DroneXL.co, I think.
Yeah, DroneXL.co. So if you guys want to go check it out, go ahead and look it up. Again, I wish Hai all the best because I think that it's really important to have someone that covers drone news. Some things might be redundant that they cover, like that there's been like a drone sighting in an airport or whatever. But I think that it's also a really good way to spread good things about drones because there's certain things that like we wouldn't make a video on, like drones helping, in certain situations. Like right now, coronavirus, right? Like I don't think I'd really focus on a video about how drones are helping with coronavirus. I mean, I understand the benefits behind it, but I just don't think that's really my place. But with a blog, like a news site, that is right up Hai's alley. That's yeah. I think that is it's going to be really good, especially with more competition. It's awesome.
I think so. We'll have to see how it all plays out, but wish him all the best.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see if he starts up a YouTube channel too, because I know that he did a little bit of YouTube with Drone DJ, so that'll be pretty cool to see.
I think it's one of those things that it's like, do you want to go down that path? Because there's a lot of channels. If you're gonna do something, do what you're good at, and if you're good at writing, stick to writing. So you're not cross pollinating in areas that you can't divert attention to, type of thing. That's just my take on that. I mean, I sometimes feel like we get pulled all over the place ourselves, but that's
I agree.
a whole different story.
Think about how saturated the drone market is. Maybe
it's becoming more saturated. There's all sorts of channels now that are popping up that I've never even heard of. Somebody will say, "Oh, so and so." I'm like, I have no idea who that is. I don't really watch YouTube when I'm not doing YouTube. Funny enough, I don't watch drone content when I'm not doing YouTube.
I'm the same way, and I think that that's pretty interesting.
I watch everything other than drones. I don't know. I guess it's sort of like playing tennis. It's almost boring if you're not actually doing it. Is that a fair analogy? I think it's a fair analogy. I would say, for tip number 4, if I had to revert after I totally screwed you over on the gimbal thing, I was going to say you could practice hand catching, but since I'm an idiot and almost took my finger off with the Mini yesterday, I don't necessarily know I would say to practice that, but people keep busting my chops about not using a landing pad. And I don't like I don't like landing pads. I never have.
Dude. All right.
Can you remember when the last time I used one?
Never. I don't think you ever have. So
no, it was. There was one time. It was
really?
when we were on that. It was when we were on that island with the Evo.
Oh yeah, because
Evo.
you had to. You were on.
I had
no
sand. Choice.
Look, landing pads. They're a great idea for certain situations and certain scenarios. But like, there are some people who will religiously use a landing pad. I guess a landing pad, takeoff pad, whatever you want to call it. Like, I've seen it used on asphalt. Look, I don't mean to knock anybody, but by any means, but for me, I'm always trying to travel light. I'm trying to make things as efficient as possible, and using a landing pad just slows me down, in the long run. I think if you're on like a different terrain, like dirt, sand, maybe even grass, I understand the use for a landing pad, but man, I've got a mobile landing pad and it's called my hand. I use that.
I think obviously if you're just trying to land your drone in your hand, you're probably not going to get hurt. You're not going to get hurt. You're not going to take. I mean, for hell, the Skydio 2 is basically meant to land in your hand. Yeah. And it's fine. The Mavic 2 Pro, super easy drone to land in your hand. As long as you're not trying to sling it in your hand super fast like I do often, you're probably going to be fine. You're not going to ever have an issue. So as long as you're not doing something stupid like that, you're not going to have to worry about taking any of your hands off or fingers off.
I think that the only thing that you really need to be worried about is your eyes, right?
100%.
Keeping your face away from the drone, that's the number one thing that you've got to do. So I was flying the Mavic 2 Pro on a boat, and I kind of thought that before we were going to leave the dock, I had a little bit of time to put it up. Now, usually when I'm flying from a boat, I'll fly my Phantom because it's got those legs underneath and it's just so easy. Like, as we're moving at 30 miles an hour, I can reach out, keep up with the boat, slowly bring it over towards me and catch it. You know what I mean? It's so much easier. But with the flat design of the Mavic, you kind of want it to just be able to set, like rest down into your hand. So we started moving, and I had no way of getting this drone back to me. I mean, it was tough. Granted, we were only moving like 5 miles an hour, but that's still, it's a moving target. There's not a lot of room to set the drone down on. So I literally just reached up and grabbed it, and all 4 propellers just hit my hand, and it wasn't that bad. Maybe I got lucky, but I do just want to kind of clarify that, like, I've taken a lot of nicks from propellers in the past, and they just leave little cuts, and they're cool little scars to have.
The worst was the Phantom 4 Pro.
Yeah, and that's true, right? You go up to larger drones, it's obviously going to have a much greater effect. Could you imagine getting hit with an Inspire 2 propeller?
Oh, I couldn't imagine. I would be on the ground.
Like, I'm not trying to justify the fact that, like, these don't hurt or whatever, because it does hurt. But, like, I've gotten good at it to the point where I don't even worry about nicking myself anymore. And it's become so convenient, just being able to take off right from my hand or land. I mean, if there's asphalt, I'll just take off and land from the asphalt. It's easy enough. But in difficult terrain, just, boom, pop it up from your hand. It's so easy.
Yeah, I agree. Now, just to clarify, we are not condoning anybody to do this, because the last thing I want to hear is somebody goes and tries to do this and has to go to the hospital, because the hospital right now is the last place that you want to be. So again, we're not condoning this, but it is perfectly safe to take off from your hand on a Mavic, because reality is, as soon as you hit the props, you just give it a little gentle toss and it's going to stabilize. Oddly enough, the Mavic Mini doesn't do that. Did you know that?
No, but I guess you tried it.
Yeah. So I'm flying yesterday and I'm like, this is just like every other Mavic I own. Luckily it was on like a very soft surface, and I, spun it up and I just gave it a gentle toss and it just sank. And I'm like, oh crap, I guess it doesn't, I guess that doesn't work like that. It was like one of those moments where I wish the camera was on my face, because it was just priceless. So it does not do that.
Can I be totally honest with you?
Yeah.
I gave you so much crap about not having a fourth one, and even though you didn't really give a good fourth one, I didn't have one either. I was really relying on you.
Dude. See, I had a feeling, dude. I had a freaking feeling. But you know what? There's like only so much you can really hone in your yard. And most of this is even if people aren't within an airspace.
Yeah, think about how general the topics are that we gave, right? I mean, there's so many different things in regards to like flying a drone that are so specific, but in general, right? If you get better at all the back end things like the settings, tweaking how your drone flies, tweaking the gimbal settings, as Ken wanted to make the fourth one. If you handle the settings, you practice the actual drone flying, and then you really practice your skills in editing. I mean, that's a really good amount of stuff to work on. And there's so many different little things to really focus on within those broader topics.
You can even, I don't know how many people have like a woods next to them or something, but like I have woods next to my house, and I can, like, I've been practicing flying like the Mini through really tight, spots and branches, just to see what it's capable of doing, to see like what I can actually get. And I'm flying where if it falls, it's going to fall on like very soft terrain, not a big deal. It's probably not going to break anything at all. But it's really interesting lately to see what you can put that drone into. And I'm going to probably start doing it with the Mavic as well, the Mavic 2 Pro, because it's incredible. Like, you can really push these drones through a lot, and really get, I think, a lot more daring footage than you could get out of, let's say, a Skydio. And it's better because you're the one that's in control of that. There isn't
you have manual control.
There's no AI. This is all you. It's a product that you can be proud of after you're done.
So here's something we'll end off with. This is something that I just thought of as I'm looking at my Inspire 2. This is a great time with the downtime. Maybe you're busy, who knows? Maybe you've got jobs, which is great. But if there's some downtime that you have right now, use it to do some fleet management, right? Like, sit down, get an understanding of how many flights your drone has on it, maybe clean it off.
Yeah, check the batteries.
Yeah, check the batteries, maybe replace the propellers. But, I mean, really something that can be time consuming is getting your drone fixed. So maybe, I mean, there might be some repair facilities that are open. Maybe if you send it over to, I don't know if maybe Zach has anybody that does drone repairs, or if Zach does it himself. But I know that I've been working with a distributor from New York, or North Jersey. I got the Mavic Mini from them. They have like a DJI repair facility. I don't know if they're open right now or not, but I'm just saying that, like, sometimes these repairs can take a couple of weeks, and this could be a great opportunity to take advantage of the time you have off and the time you have down to send your drone in for repair to fix anything minor. I've got 2 broken feet on my Inspire 2 that I can get taken care of, and I'm going to get taken care of after we record this podcast. I'm going to start that process. But also think about it, like, if these facilities aren't open, you can order the parts, learn how to do it yourself, and fix your drone yourself with this time that you have, which even though maybe it doesn't seem like such a great idea and you're worried about messing something up, you'd be so surprised that once you take something apart and put it back together, you have such a better understanding of how it works. Like, I know that with the boosted board, like, I've replaced the motors on it, and I just have such a better understanding of how it works because I've taken it apart, I've changed the motors, and I've put it back together. Now, granted, it was a very easy process, but there's tutorials for literally anything online. So if you needed to change like a motor on a Mavic Mini or something, or a motor on any drone at all, you can look up a tutorial on that. You can order it and do it yourself. So that could be something really good to do. If you've got something that you've been waiting to get fixed, do it now. Why not?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, some of the things that you can fix on these drones are a little daunting, But obviously, if you have a lot of time, it's not so bad to take it apart and try to fix it yourself. I know, like, if somebody has a broken gimbal, they were going to send it out for repair. You may want to try fixing it yourself. I mean, it's definitely doable. There's a lot of guides out there for a lot of the things that we've probably broke on our drones, just to fix. Or if you want to send it into DJI, their service centers are still open. It may just take a little bit longer, but hell, I mean, you got nothing but time, I guess, in most instances.
It's true. Look, on a serious note, guys, I hope that everybody's doing well during this time. I know that I've heard of people losing family members, people who have family members that are getting sick. So, during this time, I really hope that everybody's doing well. Ken, I hope everything is good for you. And I just hope that this madness is over soon.
Yeah, I do too. Well, so no matter what you guys do, whatever you take away from this episode, just stay safe. And if you need to drop a line, we're always on Twitter. And if you shoot us a DM message, whatever, we'll definitely answer. So if you have any questions or you get hung up on anything we talked about tonight, just feel free to reach out to us. I'm at Original Dobo, and Billy is at Billy Kyle.
Yes, sir.
Hope you guys all have a great week, and we will be back again Monday.
Yep, Monday. We will talk to you guys then.
See you.